Okay, all right, guys, we're back. Now, in the previous lecture, we were talking about how the Chinese have been really humiliated by the British through the Opium Wars. Now we're going to see how that is going to translate to how Chinese people are going to respond. Because keep in mind, the Chinese people aren't just going to sit there. There's going to be some kind of response. Now, so let's start it. After the Opium War, after the Treaty of Nanjing, we're going to see that a lot of the Chinese people begin to doubt the legitimacy of the Qing. They're like, you're our leaders, you're not that good. All right, you've just been slapped around pretty significantly. Okay, look, if we go back to the very first day of this class, a lot of the Chinese people believe that the Qing have lost the mandate of heaven and they need to be overthrown and something new needs to be put there. A new dynasty needs to come to power. Also, as well, China has internal problems. From about 1800 to 1850, we're going to see that the Chinese population actually increases pretty substantially. We're going to see that, roughly 100 million new people will be in China. All right, because they're farming new land, some of it's not the best land, and they're also introducing some American crops. So, of course, the population spikes. But that's temporary because they don't have good land management. They're not using the land wisely. They're over farming the soil, which leads to poor soil, which leads to famine, which leads to death. The government has become corrupt, and they're not taking care. They're not building up the food storages. They're not providing flood relief for the Yangtze River. Okay, so there's a lot of bad things going on internally in China. Now, of course, keep in mind that they're working together. As the Chinese are trying to fight off the British, they need money to do this, so of course they tax the peasants, which are already hurting because their land's not great anymore. They're not growing as much crops, and a lot of times they're starving, and the government still wants taxes from them. So we're going to see that peasant uprisings in the 19th century are going to be fairly common. Okay, a lot. All right. Now there's one that we're really going to focus on, the Taiping Rebellion. But keep in mind, the life of a Chinese peasant in the mid-19th century, it's not going to be good. Okay, so let's talk about the Taiping Rebellion, and it's going to revolve around a man by the name of Hong Xiuquan. Now, here's the deal. Hong Xiuquan, he was studying to take the civil service exam. Okay, he studied Confucianism. He devoted his life to Chinese learning. It's just unfortunate for him that every time he took the civil service exam, he failed. He failed the civil service exam like numerous times. Now, after failing it so many times, he begins studying with Christian missionaries in China. Now, this is going to be very important that he's studying with Christian missionaries because there will be a Christian component to this rebellion. So, he claims that he is the younger brother of Jesus Christ. And he has been sent to earth for a purpose. Now, the phrase is, he was sent to earth, he was sent to earth to create a heavenly kingdom of great peace. Maybe even think of him as like the Messiah for the Chinese people. Things are so bad, I am Jesus' younger brother, follow me, and I'm going to take you out of this problem. Now, keep in mind, he's also promising his followers, equality, food, clothing. More than likely, they didn't care anything about Christianity or Jesus Christ, but when somebody's like, hey, I'll give you food, clothing, equality, that sounds pretty good, and people are going to start to follow him, and he will attract thousands upon thousands upon thousands of followers, which is good for him, but very, very bad for the Qing government. Now, one other thing too, many of the people who followed Hong Xiuquan, they're called the Hakka people, okay? Now, these people have only been brought under Chinese control during the Ming Dynasty, the previous dynasty. So they haven't had, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years of Confucianism ingrained in their head. All right. Not only that, they don't even see the Qing as like legitimate rulers. So this is a built-in group that Hong Xiuquan can use to help him achieve his goals and really give the Qing a lot of headaches. Now, going back to the Hakka people, like I said, they weren't down necessarily fully with Confucianism. The women amongst the Hakka people, they remained relatively strong in their society. They weren't subservient like Chinese women. They didn't bind their feet. The men never wore the Manchu Kuei, which a lot of times the Manchu Kuei was associated with subservience. So you have thousands and thousands of these Hakka people that are just like, well, we don't really like the Qing anyway, and now there's a person leading them, which is going to make Hong Xiuquan very strong. Now, we're going to see that by the end of 1850, okay, the Taiping, the people that Hong Xiuquan are leading, is nearly 20,000 people. And look, an army of 20,000 people can do a lot of damage. And they march to Nanjing, they march on Nanjing in 1853. And keep in mind, these are not a bunch of scrubs. They defeat the Chinese Imperial Army. This is a big uh-oh moment for the Qing. We have just lost. This is not good. And tens of thousands of Manchus are going to be killed in Nanjing. Now, of course, for Hong, he's going to declare Nanjing the capital of this, heavenly kingdom. And everything is going to be great from this point on. But it's not. We're going to see that a couple years later, at around 1853, after 1853, I'm sorry, we're going to see that the rebellion really begins to disintegrate. Many of the Taiping, originally they're living very humble lifestyles. A lot of them are ascetics. Well, once they get into power, they start learning, hey, luxury's good. I like luxury. And so they start living more opulent lifestyles, which alienates some of their followers. Second, they can't quite court the scholar gentry. They can't get the scholar gentry to help them rule, which is unfortunate because those are all the best people. Those are all the most intellectual people. Those are all the best governmental administrators. So it's going to be very hard to rule China when you don't have that experienced scholar gentry to help you rule. Third thing, they couldn't get any of the foreign powers to help them. Okay? They couldn't get in like a Britain. They couldn't get a Britain to back them. They couldn't get a France to back them. If you're not going to get the scholar gentry, you better get somebody else with some power to help you rule. Well, they failed to get both. Now, we're going to see is really where the fit's going to hit the shan here. Okay? In the 1860s, we're going to see that the British and the French, they feel threatened economically by the Taipings. Now, they're not going to have this. That money must flow. So we're going to see that on behalf of the Qing, the British and the French are going to fight the Taipings. They're going to basically end this rebellion very quickly. So because the Taipings threaten Shanghai, the British and the French will retaliate. Now, they're not retaliating as British and French. They're retaliating on behalf of the Qing. And the Qing are going to take back Nanjing in 1864. So they take it back. Now, in the fighting, thousands upon thousands of Taiping rebels are killed. Maybe about 100,000 of them are killed. I mean, Hong has actually already been killed. So really after 1864, we see that the Taipings are nothing again. Okay, and the Qing comes back to power. But keep in mind, the Qing are only coming back to power because the British and the French helped them out. Now, I would say the most important thing you need to pull from this was two. One is that during this rebellion, 30 million Chinese are going to die. That's a lot of Chinese people. The second thing, though, is now the Qing have reasserted themselves as rulers of China, but it's only because the French and the British helped them. which means that now the Qing are even more dependent on foreign powers. They're even more going to have to be bent to the will of the Europeans. And that's going to have problems, and that's going to have reforms as well coming down the pipe. All right, I'll see you next video, and we'll talk about the self-strengthening movement and how the Chinese government responds.